Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Retained Recruiter Show. My name is James.
And my name's Jo. Thank you very much for joining us here today at, again, our new time of 4 p.m. Hopefully, 4 p.m. British Standard Time. Hopefully people are starting to get to grips with the fact that we're no longer here in the mornings anymore. We are an afternoon show, not a morning show.
Yeah, we're the afternoon show. We're the drive time show, Jo. And listen,
yes,
Jo, it's nice to come back. I had a week off last week, so I had a nice, enjoyable time. But I wanted to say, Jo, I actually did listening to your show with you and Finn, our marketing director. And I've got to say, it was an exceptional show. And for anybody who's not listened to it, I would recommend. Maybe we can put up a link to for people to catch it, but certainly catch hold of that show last week. It was an eye-opener. Some fantastic phrases that came out of it, some little takeaways. And one of my little favorite ones, Jo, that came from Finn was, clients aren't looking for information, they're looking for transformation.
Yes.
That was one little snippet, and there were many, many more. And I thought it was a great show to watch in, because normally when you're recording these shows, we're not recording them, they're going out as live. You quite often don't get the chance to listen back, and certainly not in the way that I did last week. So it was good to listen into, Jo. So congratulations to you and Finn on a great show last week.
Do you know, it was brilliant, and we probably could have carried on, and we definitely will have Finn back.
Recommend that.
You came back off holiday, so that was awkward because me and Finn had sort of made an agreement we were going to just carry on together. We're going to run off into the podcast sunset together. But no,
I heard that. I thought it was just a rumor, and they let me back in.
Yes, yeah, just for this week. We'll see how it goes.
Good. Well, let's get started. Let's. What are we talking about today, Jo?
Do you know what? This is the thorn in the side of every business, I think, not just recruitment businesses, but every business. So how can you build an unbreakable high-performance recruitment team? So key things we're going to talk about is, why is being a good recruiter not nearly enough as it used to be? How has it evolved in the last 5 to 10 years? Why is it just harder in today's world? Second thing we're going to talk about is how to actually attract and recruit really great people into your organization. Is it an art? Is it a science? Is it somewhere in between? And then thirdly, we are going to talk about how to actually build high performance teams. What is the secret source, I suppose, or the secret psychology behind high performance teams? So we'll bring in some growth mindset and some emotional intelligence as well. So lots to cover, and literally 27 minutes to cover what I think is probably the biggest challenge to most businesses, isn't it? The recruitment, the attraction, the recruitment of top performers, not just people, but top performers to their business, James.
I know, and you've probably heard the phrase like how, Jo, that good is the enemy of great. And what we're all looking for as business owners who are listening into this is, how do I build a great recruitment team? And it is a huge challenge for many people. Now, of course, not everybody's involved or interested even in building a team. But for those of you that are interested in growing, expanding, building a great team has become it's one of the biggest challenges facing business owners that sits out there today, and we're certainly hearing that from the people we deal with, aren't we, Jo?
Yeah, 100%. Biggest barrier to growth in a business is the inability to recruit and retain top talent. And also, I don't think this is just about attrition, people leaving your business, but it's about underperformance. The actual link for the episode with Finn last week is now in the comments on this, guys. So if you do want to go and have a look, please feel free. But yeah, to go back to what we were saying then, it's a massive challenge for businesses. It's one of the biggest barriers to growth to any organization, if not the biggest barrier to growth. But actually, it's the thing that we probably spend the least amount of time doing, or the least amount of time thinking about how to do it properly. There's a great, I've spoken a couple of times at different events around this, and the sort of the 7 hiring mistakes that businesses make. Recruitment businesses are just the same. So the mistakes made when hiring for your own team. So it's not just about attracting great people. It's about being able to select the right people for your business. You want people who are going to be happy, who are up to it and up for it. So they have the motivation and the capability in equal measure, but that also are going to stay and enable the growth of your business and not leave, but also not underperform. Don't think anybody, James, comes into recruitment thinking, I want to be an average recruiter. No. People come into recruitment thinking, I want to be a really great recruiter. I want to change the world. I want to make a stamp on the world. I want to hit my goals and targets. They get put into an organization and then over a period of time conditioned, either consciously or unconsciously, to behave in certain ways. So, we are going to look at that when we talk about psychological safety zones in a bit. But I do think that, is it harder to be a recruiter nowadays, James, do you think, than it was 5 to 10 years ago? Because you've been around for a long time.
Yeah, a bit longer than that.
Yeah. Hi, Shaz. Shaz is in the comments there.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, I think the challenges are that we see that we see with people is, being a recruiter nowadays. I think it's become a harder job. Not just because of the shortages in candidates at this moment in time, but there are a lot more demands on people, and the expectations from both candidates and clients has meant that the role, sometimes you almost have to be a counsellor with these people. You need your skill sets have to be changed, but fundamentally, what underpins all of this is your ability as a recruiter, assuming you're a fee earner, as a recruiter to deliver and go out there and actually deliver the right results. And so, having the right mindset is a critical part of that. I mean, I know we talk about that a lot, Joe, but also in terms of if you're trying to identify those people, it's about having in place the right assessment and selection processes. And we're recruiters, so surely we should have some of these. Of course, we're going to talk about some of the methods that you can use, but it's not just about the hygiene factors of saying, is it the right salary? Do we have the right benefits? Whether that's gym membership, health membership, whatever it may be. Those are the package elements. But it's the other elements now which identifies to whether somebody wants to perform in your business and wants to perform for you. So I think we've also got to look at the role of leadership in this, Joe, as well, in terms of who people want to work with and for. So you actually got to have that part. And it's interesting. I was talking to one of our clients' candidates today, this afternoon. I was talking with them to somebody, and he was saying that he'd met somebody who'd said on their CV they were an inspirational leader, and so he decided to ask this candidate, what gives you what makes you an inspirational leader? And the person was flummoxed because it was something
really? That's
written on their CV, but when coming to explain it, they couldn't explain it. Whether that was, well, I lead from the front, I wouldn't ask any of my team to do anything I wouldn't do. I'm collaborative. I like to share with people rather than being an authoritarian leader. And some people are. There's different styles, of course. And you just have to make sure that when you're hiring people to come into your business, if you want them to be great, you've got to understand a lot more about the person, I think, and that's the bit that we get fixated. Because I know when one of the first things we do when we're looking to bring on a new fee earner, I'm going to talk about fee earners rather than resourcing team, and obviously that's another angle people can look at. But when you're looking to bring in somebody who's a fee earner, we often look for we talk about this a lot. The key things that we look for in CVs are knowledge, skills, and experience, and how did they perform at the last job? And surely if somebody's been a high performer, a good performer in another company, can I get at least that out of them, or can I stretch them further and get more? But all too often we see, once we've recruited them, that those good performers, actually a lot of them don't get to great. They actually fall back because they've been recruited for the wrong reasons. They've been recruited purely on their ability to show that they've recruited fees before. And that's really attractive to a business owner, because if somebody's done, let's say, 200 grand in one company, well, if they can do that for me, I'll pay them the 70,000 basic that they're asking for, because I think they'll be able to deliver that for me and I'll make good money from it, or whatever the salary points may be, of course. And I think that's missing out on the point, because we talk about attitude and aptitude, and you've got to look at some of those factors that go into it. So I think we've got to look at some of the mistakes that get made in the hiring process to identify how you can turn, what could be a good employee into a great employee, and how you make sure you don't get a good employee and turn them into a poor employee.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at the past 5 to 10 years, and you look at the investment that a lot of businesses have made in technology, does that make the recruiters better? I'm not sure. We talk about, the whole tagline of this really was, why being a good recruiter has evolved in the last 5 to 10 years. I'm not sure whether recruiters have evolved in the last 5 to 10 years, or maybe devolved. I don't think has technology and the investments that we've made in technology brought us closer to candidates and clients, or further away. Has it made this more of a transactional job than it was before? And I'm not sure that the job there are more elements to the job. There's more technology built in. I tried to write a list of if you were writing, if you were recruiting for this type of person, it's sales, marketing, PR, ops, logistics, customer service, complaints, it's technical support, it's all a counselor, coach. It's all of those things. So what recruiters are being asked to do on a daily basis, I think, is stretching them. What it's maybe taking us further away from is the client and the client relationship, and being able to build consultative relationships. So I'm not sure recruitment has changed really in terms of what clients want. Are clients more educated? Yes. Do they have more options? Yes. Are candidates the same? Yes, probably. But also I think over the last few years, I think technology has taken us further away from providing a consultative service. And back in the day, maybe there was more of that. There was more of that, and now there maybe isn't. So is it an evolution, or is it a renaissance? Are we going for a renaissance in consultation and pure service provision? Because if you're looking for a CV vending machine to sit at a desk all day and do that, that's one profile. But if you're looking for someone who can consult and advise and educate a client on the best course of action and work with them as a partner, that's very different. So I think sometimes what clients, to go back to your point before, what clients are looking for or what they think they're looking for when they go recruiting, sometimes they don't know, or it's not exactly what they probably need. So tell us about McQuaig, James, because we use something that helps that, doesn't it? Helps clients to be able to make more informed judgment calls about what it is they're actually looking for in their business.
Yeah, and it's a tool that one of the things we talk about in our intro is as well. Our focus is how we can help recruitment business owners, recruiters go out and deliver a better service to their clients. But actually, Joe, our tool is an amazing tool for actually your own internal recruitment, and it's one of the things that we stress with all of our clients that please don't forget that you've got an amazing tool for recruiting and assessing and selecting candidates for your clients. Don't forget to use it for yourself, whether that's to bring in a 360 recruiter, a 180 recruiter, a researcher, resourcer, or somebody else on the office admin side. Because one of the things that we talk about in the world of behavioural assessment is that fundamentally in any recruitment process, there are 3 levels of assessment that take place. And the 3 levels of assessment are known as, level 1, level 2, and level 3, of course. And level 1
imaginatively enough.
Imaginatively enough. But level 1 is what we call the appear to level. And this is quite subjective, really, because when we talk about it, we sometimes say people look the part or they sound the part. So it's quite judgmental. And, Joe, as well, the first reaction that we have sometimes, we only get seconds to make the right impression. That can be good, bad, or indifferent sometimes, and you have to overcome it. But imagine we've got through that first phase, which I say is relatively superficial. You then come to level 2, which is known as what we call as the can-do level. Now, these levels are cumulative, by the way. So this is compounding your decision-making process. And level 2 is known as the can-do level. And level 2 is where you assess whether the candidate has the knowledge, skills, and experience to do the job. And the way that we assess and evaluate that as recruiters or hiring managers is we review the CV. It's as simple and as basic as that. And we've got a job specification on one hand, and we've got a candidate CV on the other hand. Somebody wants to come and work for our company as a recruiter or whatever it may be in the organization. And we identify, looking at their past track records, does this person tick all the boxes? Now, presume they do for a moment. How do we further assess at this same level 2 to identify whether this candidate can do it, not just where they say they can do it? We bring them in for an interview. And at that interview, we interview the CV or resume for those of you listening in North America. Now, what that means is you go through the process of asking the candidate about their experience at XYZ, ABC, DEF, the companies they've worked for in the past, any training they've had, any courses they've attended, any coaching they've had, to just confirm and verify that everything's sorted and in place. So level 2 is really, really important, because when we go back and say, have you ever hired somebody into your organization who didn't have the right knowledge, skills, and experience as you determined and set out in your job description? And nobody ever says, no, I didn't. You might have somebody who's listening and say, well, I took a flyer on somebody once. Did it work out? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But most of the time people say, yeah, they ticked all the boxes. So then we'll talk about, well, okay, let's get to level 3. Now, level 3 assessment is where you start to use tools which are not as well, they're simple to use, but you can't do this in a face-to-face interview. So you're using science in this particular process. And level 3 is known as the will-do level, Joe. So level 1 is the appear to, level 2 is the can do, and level 3 is the will do. Now, the will do is when you identify what the candidate will do given a certain set of circumstances, situations, or environments. So here you're looking at things, we're not looking at, but you're identifying attitude, aptitude, motivation, judgment, things which you can't determine typically in a face-to-face interview. You can take a stab at it, but the reality is you're not really going to find out, because in a face-to-face interview, you just get a bit, you're asking questions and you're hearing about what the candidate wants to say to you, and you can read some assumptions into that. But these are things which are normally learned over a period of time in most recruitment processes. Now, the problem with this, Joe, is if you get it wrong, this is when a good performer turns into a bad performer. Because if you do exit interviews with companies, or we get to see candidates who are leaving companies, of course, say, why did you leave that job after 6 months or whatever it may be? The response is never, oh, I didn't have the right knowledge, skills and experience. The answer is, well, actually, from the candidate side, it goes along the lines of, you know what, the job wasn't what they sold it to me as.
Yeah, it didn't work out. I didn't like the team.
Exactly. It wasn't what they told me. And when we ask the employer, whether that's a recruiter or an end employer, it's, well, they didn't perform or they didn't fit in. Okay, well, what did you do to assess their performance and fit for this particular role? Well, we interviewed them. 3 of us interviewed, and we all agreed. Okay, but you didn't find out how they'll work and the environment. And I know sometimes people talk about culture. This is what we call role culture rather than corporate culture. Is identifying what the candidate will do when in situation. And this is where we introduce the McQuaig process or behavioural assessment. Now, there are other assessment tools out there. Most people will be familiar with things like DISC and TOS International or Myers-Briggs or Savile Holdsworth. There are lots of them out there. We just actually happen to work with a company called the McQuaig Institute because they're really good for recruitment, which is what we do. Yeah. And what we do is, the first thing is we actually profile the role. So we don't just sort of profile candidates, which is what a lot of systems just do. We actually profile. We get the feedback from the employer, in this case the recruiting organization, to say what type of person do they want as a 180 recruiter or a 360 recruiter, and different attributes and strengths to fit in with that organization. And you might think, oh, surely there's a general rule for a recruiter. Well, no, there isn't. It's about how will they fit into your team. So if you don't profile the team that they're going into, you could put you're trying to squeeze a square peg into a round hole, or a square, the other way around, whichever way it should be, and it doesn't work out. So the will do level is cumulative again, and this is getting an increasing impact on performance. So if someone looks the part, they might perform at level A. If someone looks the part and can do the job, they'll perform at level B. And if someone can looks the part, do the job, but more importantly, will do the job the way that the employer wants it to be done, then you get high performance. And if you're active in assessing level 3, then you've got more chances of success in hiring the right type of person into your organization. If you're passive, you're just leaving it to chance and hoping that people work out. And this is where we sometimes talk about the statistics within employing organizations, including recruitment organizations, and saying, what's your success rate with new hires, and success being determined by how many still make it to their first year anniversary. And in recruitment, we sometimes hear 5 or 6, occasionally 6 or 7, rarely 7 or 8. But that means you've got a 60, 70, 80% success rate, which means, flip side, you've got a 20 to 30% success failure rate in your attrition. So what can we do to identify that level 3? And that's where assessment comes into the process. And it's a really important part that becomes part, it's a cornerstone of some of the work that we do with employers, but also with recruiters to hire their own people and bring them in. Because if you can assess using multiple layers of scientific and objective assessment, I know you mentioned that last week as well, Joe.
Yeah.
If you do that, then you've got more chance of actually getting the right result that's good for you and good for the business. But importantly, it makes it a great experience for the candidate who's joined the company, because when they slot into the role, that's when you'll turn a good employee into a great employee. Because if you're in tune, and we've all hired a superstar at some point, and you think, oh, I'm lucky, or am I lucky, or hey, I'm a great person to recruit. But I sometimes think, I'm so glad that person works for me because they're a superstar. And it's happened by chance, because like most people, up until I started working with iIntro, we were just we were doing things by hoping and praying. What's the drug for that? Hopium. We were hoping that we would actually find the right employee. Well, don't leave things to chance. Be active in that level 3 assessment, and you can bring that into your own recruitment process with a little bit of training and understanding. And that's the type of things that we deliver in the Retained Recruiter Academy, Joe. That's part of the iIntro platform that we have. So that's an important part. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not too sure. I'm not sure how many companies do that when they're recruiting for their own businesses. I mean, obviously, iIntro really is designed for recruitment organizations who want to then put this type of stuff into their client companies, help their clients to make more informed hiring decisions. And no one's saying that we're not being disrespectful and saying businesses don't know how to hire for their own teams, but they don't really. And even as recruiters, we get it wrong a lot of the time when we're trying to recruit for our own organizations. So you're absolutely right. Plus, we all know the skill shortages. It's really difficult to get experienced consultants, like you said, just because they've done it in one place doesn't mean they're going to be able to replicate it in your place. So being able to recruit on potential rather than just past performance is really, really important. And recruiting on potential is a science. There was a science to that. So you have to have multiple levels of assessment in place if you're wanting to bring great people into your team. You know, we're talking here about how do you build a high performance team. High performance is about two things. It's about retention and results. And retention and results start with recruitment. So if you want to retain good staff and you want to get high results, big, massive results from your existing staff, your new staff that you bring in, you've got to look at your recruitment process. We tend to spend the least, as managers or business owners, we tend to spend the least amount of our time recruiting, and then the most amount of our time managing underperformance or trying to manage underperformers out of our business. But there's a direct correlation between those two things. So if we actually started to be a bit more conscious about how we're recruiting, you know, and even bring somebody in to help you with this. There's no, you will always take your own recruitment personally, I think. So
when you say bring someone in, I know obviously a lot of recruiters now use Rec to Recs who do offer a great service, but that's not the support that you're referencing just there.
No, because you're painting somebody to do what you would do if they're using subjective methods as well, then no, that's not what we're talking about. You need to bring in the experts who are experts in psychological profiling and psychometric testing, not just your candidates, like you said, James, but the job, the role, your organization. I did a piece of research before this session, which I think is really interesting. And I've got this sort of, when you get sort of like a bit of a brain noodle and you think, oh, it's so, and I sort of thought, well, I'm going to investigate it. So I started to investigate online dating, which is brilliant because now my husband's going to know that I've just signed up to about 3 different online dating sites. So if you're listening, Steve, I'm not leaving you. It's purely research, I promise. So I started to look at online dating because actually when you think about it, your recruitment for your own business, anyone listening to this, see if you can answer this question. Your own recruitment for your own business, how much has it evolved in the last 5 years or 10 years or 2 years? Are you still recruiting people into your own team now the same way or in a similar way as you were doing it sort of 5 to 10 years ago? And the answer is probably yes, because a lot of the times we don't actually have time to sit and try, and we work on the basis that if it's not broke, don't fix it. But actually probably we're trying to identify it, that it is broken. You just can't see. It's fractured. It's a fractured process. So I started to look at online dating. When you look at, has online dating evolved in the last 10 to 15 years? Yes, exponentially. So back in the day, James, when you were first dating, I would imagine we were still putting little adverts in the newspapers. You used to have like a Lonely Hearts column, and that's how people found each other, or they did the old-fashioned way of word of mouth or referrals, and it was relatively hit or miss. You had to kiss, everyone says, this is the famous phrase, you had to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince. It really was a case of a numbers game, and there was a lot of time and energy wasted, going on dates and meeting people that actually probably weren't right for you, and sometimes you wouldn't find that out till way later on down the line. So anyway, fast forward 10 years, and what they've done now is, if you look at eHarmony or Cupid or Match.com, I think eHarmony and Cupid are the two that the whole business model is based on their algorithm, and their algorithm is made up of a series of things that they get two people to do that helps them to try and increase the matching accuracy. I think one of them, 27 dimensions of compatibility. That's what eHarmony say. They've got 27 different levels of assessment that you go through. One of which is 400 questions. You have to answer 400 questions in order for it to build the right, mold for them to then go and find another person who looks like they're going to be a match. Wow. And they have all these statistics about matching accuracy and how these, the success stories. Is it flawed? Yes, 100%. Because, of course, you've got dissonance. So people can answer questions based on what they think of themselves. Or I want to go on a date, so I'm going to say this. It's the same in a job interview. People will tell you stuff. So how do you go from that to actually not just what they say they can do or who they say they are, but how do you actually test it? So a lot of dating sites now also use psychometric testing. And these layers of assessment, like you said, are cumulative to the point where, what else have they got? Let's have a look. They use psychometrics. They use video interviewing. You can go on a video date before you see a video of someone you decide. You go on a video date before you go on a proper date. There's key competency questions, which is what we call them at iIntro, but actually it's still a series of questions you write out and the other person answers it. So there's a series of stages and hurdles that you have to go through so that hopefully, and this is what their statistics suggest, that by the time that you get to an interview or a date, this is a great session for two types of people maybe, but by the time you go on a date, there is an incredibly high chance that you will like them and they will like you, and not just like them now, but that this will be something that will take you off into the future. So dating sites have evolved hugely. They've had investment in technology and methodology, and they've brought in science and very clever ways of assessing things. And as recruiters, we're still doing CV-based interviewing. I think there's a lot we can learn. Anybody go and register on a dating site. It's very, very interesting. But it brings us back to the point that as recruiters, we need to invest in science and technology and methodology. If we want to bring really good people into our business, you have to make sure that you have the processes and the structures in place in order to do it, because you can't then blame people once they're in your business if they're not performing, if you've taken the wrong person on, or you've put them into the wrong role, or you've misrecruited. That's our fault, unfortunately, I think, as business owners. Here endeth this weird analogy.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff in there. Great analogy and great research. Well done, by the way. In terms of what I really like there is when you talk about...
Could be divorced this time next week, James, but thanks, I'll take that.
Well, good news is you're on the site, so you'll...
Well, anyway, hey-ho, yes.
Let's not go there. But no, I think what we're talking about there is the illusion sometimes of somebody who's been a high performer in one company, who's the natural thought process, well, that they can perform well for me. It's sometimes better to say, well, if they're a high performer but the wrong fit, it's not going to work for you. You better take in a medium performer, who might be good, and actually turn them into great. And that's where, by using these objective tools, so when I talk about those three levels, level 1 and 2 are subjective, but level 3 is objective. And that's where you're going to increase your chances of success. And that's where we can then make sure that people do that. Now, these processes are really important, Joe. And what we're here to do is, it's not just inform and educate people, but actually, if you want to know more about this, please do get in touch with us so that we can actually share with you how we deliver our iIntro platform, because of all those things that you spoke about, how the evolution of things like the dating sites has happened in that dating industry. Why has it not happened in the recruiting industry? Well, it has. Joe, it has. It's happened with iIntro. That's exactly what we do.
Exactly.
So we want to share that with people. And what this is all about doing is saying, how can you improve the process to get better results in your own business as well as in your clients' businesses? And that's what we're really here to help do. Any other points, Joe? Because I just noticed we're down to the last couple of minutes. So I think we can talk about a couple of things.
I mean, I think that, prevention is always better than cure. That we are great believers in that and advocates of it. The third point was the psychology of high performance. So, what makes a good performer a great performer? Is it the person, or is it the environment? How do you grow a great carrot? Is it the seed, or is it the soil? Or is it the person who plants it? Or is it a combination of all factors? It is a combination of all factors. Now, if you're really transparent and honest and open and upfront with your recruitment as an organization, and you put these kind of practices in place, automatically you are preventing a lot of mismatching and then demotivated workforces and low performing workforces. You're preventing a lot of that by doing your recruitment in the right way, putting the right seeds in the right soil and tending them in the right way. But actually, once you've got people in the business, what you need is a very psychologically safe workspace. And psychological safety comes from a number of different things. I mean, again, this is probably an 8-hour session just in itself, but, a sense of purpose, pathways to drive people to purpose, individual purpose and collective purpose, parameters, knowing, people, we are creatures of ritual and routine, and we like safety. We like to know what we should and shouldn't be doing. So it's about having parameters in place, but then also having a very communicative and cooperative workforce. Collective feedback, all sorts of things really that help to create psychological safety. Again, it's a whole subject in itself really, and something that we'll probably look at again. The types of people that fit into those kinds of cultures. Those cultures are built. Building it is exactly what it says on the tin. It takes a long time. But it's always built by the people in the pointy end of the business, which is the leaders. So as leaders, it's about thinking, how psychologically safe is my workspace? How safe do my employees feel? Are we enabling growth? Are we inhibiting growth? Are we creating the right pathways for people to get to where they want to go? And are we eliciting those goals so that we can drive people towards their purpose? If you've got all the stuff in place, you know, that's just the icing and the cherry on top of the cake, I think. But it's really, really important. If you don't have psychologically safe workspaces and people don't feel safe to come to work, you know, give suggestions, make mistakes, be the best that they can be, it inhibits the performance of people. So your high performers don't. I mean, you'll always have 20% of your workforce. You could sit them in a box and they'll still perform exceptionally well. But this is also about the rest of them, getting out of them what they're capable and willing of giving, which again needs to be assessed at the beginning.
Joe, I probably took up too much time talking about the behavioural side of things, but hopefully it was useful to people. I just want to share with people.
30 minutes. It's such a short amount of time.
It is, but it's all meant to be, you know, little piece of information. Drop it in regularly. We do appreciate people who listen in every week. And next week, just to share with you, we actually have a special guest, a client called James Pickering, and his topic is his roadmap, or the roadmap he used to achieve 25% plus in retained recruiter fees, and how the Retained Recruiter Academy, which is you know, what Joe and I deliver to the world, how that can help increase your retained wins, how we can help you, even if you're an experienced retained recruiter, you know, increase your fees to levels above 25%. And for lots of people in the UK who are down at 15% or 15 to 20% fees, you know, how you can do that. And most importantly, how to quote those fees with very little or no pushback, which is a really interesting feature. So we'll be hoping you're going to be able to join us next week. But anything to add, Joe, just a little snippet for anybody before we close off?
No, Shaz, we have not had time to answer your question, I'm afraid, but feel free to message either myself or James, and we can pick that up with you offline. And similarly, anybody listening back, hello. If any of this has struck a chord with you, but you haven't got the first idea what we're talking about or how to implement it into your business, please get in touch. You know, we really want to help businesses to get better at getting better people. So yeah, please reach out to us.
Yeah, and you can book an appointment with us. Normally there's a link that floats by, but if not, just visit our website and you can see a page there which way you'll be able to book an appointment with us. But listen, thank you very much for joining us today on a lovely warm Tuesday in the UK. So it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
We'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.